released set yet, which is awesome. That means they're fired up. My name is Shox, and I'm joined here by Ender, by Goldberg, and by Trevor.
What you don't realize is G2 walked out the second the show started, so that's what all that was. No.
What I love is both G2 and Mad Lions getting ready for the final, starting to warm up, starting to get themselves in the mood. So it's quite nice to actually do the show open with the players behind us.
That's true. I thought it was for us, but it was for the teams, which is the way it should be, really. But yeah, we are at the day of the finals, which is crazy. It went so fast, and there were so many changes coming into this year, a very unique year for the LEC. 3 splits, 3 split champions, and then 1 2023 season champion in a brand new format. Quick shot. We're still here, but everything around us keeps changing.
I mean, it's crazy because we've seen so many different formats. I remember the 2 groups best of 3s. I remember the best of 2s. The everyone loves ties. You know, the legacy memes.
Got a bad rap.
It got a bad rap. It was definitely more frustrating than it should have been, but it's just a lot of fun memories, and it's just an exciting time to be here in LEC.
Definitely so. You're walking back in the past a little bit, and I wanted to ask you about your favorite moments. Is that part of it?
You're setting me up for this one because I have 2 favorite moments. The first one is crying on camera for the first time.
I love that too.
We had an anniversary celebrating 10 years of the LEC, and I didn't watch the video before we were live on air. Just reliving the old Ugly Rift, reliving some of the most incredible games, reliving the moments that we've had here in Europe, and just for me personally, just being alongside with you, Ifya, like it's special. We've got all these young children next to us, bringing up the next generation of fans. But we've been there from the start, and it's just been such a wild ride.
Yeah, and it's part of the fun that we have. More people alongside us, new people who bring new flavors, new tastes, new content.
And you know what?
We love
Since
you.
they're the new kids, I'll let you go next because I have to pick one of my favorite games from the year. Vitality versus XL from the regular season. First of all, XL don't advance to groups. Vitality made it groups. Vitality did not make playoffs. But that game was bonkers. 53 minutes, multiple Elder Dragons, steals. Like, it was just one of these welcome to the chaos, welcome to the madness moments, and it was just super entertaining.
Yeah. And a bit sad, of course, for XL and Vitality.
That is very true.
Couldn't make it to playoffs again. It's crazy. Goldberg, what about you?
Oh, I've been all about the 2v2 action. We've seen this split. I've really loved the fact that we've got new faces, old faces coming back, showing that 2v2 action in the bot lane already from the first minute mark. And for me specifically, it had to be the BDS bot lane going up against the G2 bot lane. Not only was it an insane mechanical outplay, what made it even better was the fact that it was narrated by Jankos himself.
And Summer uses the heal.
It is a 2v2 kill.
Forward, it's a 2v2. It's not going to be enough. Is it? Who's going to die? It's Summer. He's going to die, and Mickey doesn't have any mana. Will the flash away? They're going to go in. Oh, it's a 2v2.
Mickey has no flash. Mickey's gonna get stunned here. And Lucian dashing in. Lucian doing his comment. Lucian gets another kill. 3 kills for Lucian.
I think you've got a future in casting. Yeah, this is fantastic. Honestly, I think both Mark and I could leave, and you could solo cast the rest of this game.
Basically like a co-stream at that point.
It's good.
So Kedra said Jankos has a future in casting. Do you think if we were to ask Jankos if he wanted to cast, it would count as poaching? We'll have to check with the producer.
Yeah, we have to be very careful about that.
Okay.
You
Is there
gotta,
pool
you
number?
gotta
Jankos, call me.
I gotta say though, if Jankos is coming for your job, Team BDS, they're my favorites for coming for my job. They're doing all the fun, wacky intros, arriving to the studio. My personal favorite, bringing in the Mad Lion, of course, trying to resuscitate it on the way in, but they came in with the swagger. Had a lot of fun throughout the season. We're sort of like the breakout team trying to really build their brand.
Yeah, and I love that as an example because I think my favorite thing has been that because of the new format as well and kind of the breakneck speed at which it operates, you have to evolve so fast. You have to win the fans over, which they did. Plus, they did super well in the league. Same for the likes of SK as well. And that has been my favorite development because for so long, you would never see movement in those teams that are at the bottom of the table. And now they're moving upwards. Okay, some are choking, but...
Can I get Berlin's attention just to put a round of applause for Astralis, for BDS, for SK, because they had pop-off performances. Unfortunately, they didn't make it this far, but it's great to see them growing.
And shout out to Finn for showing up, doing all the content with us. Baron Pit, between 2 Iverns, absolute champion. Loved it.
And not so much shout out to Finn from my side, but yeah, go on.
You wanted to do that.
Yeah, I really love that. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, before we get into tonight's matchup between G2 and the Mad Lions, let's get a reminder of what's at stake with Medic.
Thank you very much, Shox. It's the dawn of the final day of the LEC Winter Split, and if, like most of us, you've only half paid attention to the YouTube explainers where Quickshot narrates just how important every single game is, every single day is, every single CS is, well, I have some great news for you. I'm going to explain it all again. Starting off with what the winner of today gets. Firstly, they win Winter 2023. Woohoo! First ever LEC Winter Champions in the bag. Secondly, they gain Europe's second seed to MSI. Also, massive poggers. Thirdly, they are at least 6th seed in the season finals that conclude our EMEA League of Legends action at the end of the year, and qualify teams to Worlds. If you don't make season finals, you don't make Worlds. So how do you qualify for the season finals? Well, 6 teams from the 10 we have here in the LEC will make it in. First off, the winner of each split will qualify, so that's our first 3. After that, the next 3 will qualify via championship points. Those mysterious, mystical, mythological marks awarded to teams based on how they place each split. If one team wins more than one split though, the next teams in succession in terms of championship points will be seeded into the season finals. So where do we stand at the moment? Well, the winner today will lock that season final spot. The rest of the teams will be fighting for the next 2 split titles and, of course, for championship points. Both winter and spring carry the same in terms of points, whereas summer, you get a few more points as form near the end of the year is a little bit more important. So here's the list of the current points from winter. A team like SK have taken a great step, already picking up 60 points from spring. However, teams like Fnatic and XL, who are sitting at the bottom of the table, have a lot of catching up to do. For today, though, we can forget about all of that. All that matters is winning, becoming the first ever LEC Winter Split winner and claiming a berth at MSI in London in May. Back to you, Shox.
Thank you so much. Indeed, thank you for reminding us a berth at MSI. 2 teams from Europe will be going, of course, the Winter Champion and the Spring Champion. But it would be nice to bookend that so early in your season, right, Broxa?
Yeah, definitely. As a player, especially, you know, on one of these teams coming in with such strong rosters, the only thing you're really playing for at this point in your career is to go to MSI, go to Worlds and show up internationally.
And to be the very first Winter Champion. Come on.
That as well, that's a nice bonus.
That as well, that works. So in 2023, we also made some changes to our award system. You can read all about it on lolesports.com. And for each split, teams on air, talent, media, and broadcast partners will be voting on our LEC All-Pro team. So we went to Discord to see what our fans think should be the All-Pro team after 6 weeks of action. We haven't seen it yet, so I'm quite curious.
Well.
Oh, here we go. Chasey, Yike, Caps, Exakick, Mickey. I mean,
okay, well,
solid.
First of all, I can see why an argument can be made for pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
I will say Chasey's been popping up lately, but regular season-wise as well, I think Photon really could be up there as well as the one you put in there.
The vote was today. This is recency bias.
Yeah, I completely agree.
He was insane yesterday.
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, if you look at the regular season, Photon was on a whole other level. But I also like that even though SK didn't make it very far, Exakick is still in there because, you know, a lot of people would probably be voting for Hansama otherwise, who's been so dominant with Mickey. So at least it's not all G2, and we're still giving a bit of love to some of the other key players.
It's usually not good. When was it? Was it last year that the Mad Lions, Niski got the MVP? They dominated
4 out of 5
Exactly.
4 out of 5 All-Pro. You might say you really don't want that because it's a bad omen.
Almost must be. They might just be jinxing it themselves if you start putting all the fans in there already. I think Niski as well could have been put in there again just from his performance so far because he's elevated himself so much. But obviously, Caps as well, such selfless mid laner to have in your team, so a great reason to have him in that role as well.
And also worth pointing out that, you know, you mentioned Niski. I think for jungle, the only other alternative would be Elyoya. So, you know, the top 1-2 mid-jungle duos are going to go up against each other here. Now, I guess Mad Lions get a chance to prove to the fans that, you know, it should have been them all along.
It should have been them. Thank you, Discord, for voting. And to get everyone fired up for today's Winter Split final, here's Ender to set the stage.
There are 3 things I hate most in this world. Weak narratives, soft-hitting analysis, and players being nice to each other. That's right, it's time to raise the stakes, turn the heat up. It's Grudge Match! G2 for the Mad Lions are going to be kicking things off in just a second. Let's put our eyes on the top lane, Chasey versus Broken Blade. And I'll have you know, Broken Blade was mauling yesterday, watching Chasey lock in the Aurelia and absolutely stomp that Gnar. And you know what? Chasey is going to be bringing the hammer down on Broken played so hard, Broken Bay's gonna have to change careers. Anyone know if G2 have an Overwatch team? I don't know. Let's move on to the jungle, though, because that's where things get real interesting. LEC, former rookie of the split, looking at the new hot stuff in the jungle. He is pissed. And you know what I heard Yike say in the interview I just made up? He said LEC sucks. Sounds like a grudge. Let's go down to the mid lane. A matchup so ancient here in the LEC. Caps versus Niski. These guys, I'll have you know, been scrimming all season. And last night, Niski leaked scrims. That's right, he said Caps has been playing Gragas in the mid lane. You know what that means? It's a Gragas match in the mid. We've also got Caps' dad in the studio, Niski mom in the studio, which is the biggest grudge yet, because they both care about their children very, very much. Down to the bot lane. Let's go ahead on down there. Hansama reverse swept Carzzy the last time they met in the finals. This guy is furious. He's gonna be coming out and he's gonna look to bam, 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 all over Hansama today, but he can't do that without the help of his support. Down in the bot lane, the biggest grudge of them all, Mickey X and Hillisang versus you. You were all shit-talking them last year. What's that about? Mickey X, you said he looked like he had a broken wrist. Well, this year, he's got a broken back carrying the rest of G2. And Hillisang, oh, Hillisang, Hilliant, he got called out for coin flipping every play last year. Well, you know what he's doing now? He's coin flipping everybody off. This man is a machine. It's Grudge 2 versus the Mad Lions. And it doesn't get any more personal than that.
For G2 versus Mad any better? Also, I think there was a little error because it was Carzzy who reverse swept Hans.
Right.
So Hans should be very mad. Doesn't matter, grudge mad.
They're both mad at each other, grudge, yeah.
They're mad at each other. But let's get down to business in terms of the matchup and talk about the big stories of these teams. G2 versus Mad. They have played each other in best of fives 5 times, and Mad lead in the best of fives 3-2. But the caveat,
yeah,
it wasn't a final.
That's the thing. The most interesting part about this is probably back in 2020 spring in that upper bracket where G2 got beaten for the first time in that best of 5, and it was against Mad Lions. Then they both dropped down to the lower brackets, and that's actually where G2 made that lower bracket run and ended up winning the entire thing. Now, this is a bit opposite this time around because G2's already in the finals. Mad Lions has been the team that's making the lower bracket run, and who knows what history is going to be like this time around.
Yeah, and Mad Lions have been fighting for a while now to get back to form, to be in the finals, and to get ready to show the world that they are, you know, not to be taken lightly. And I think the roster they've built here is really impressive. Really solid roster building from both teams, really. Both bringing in a mix of newer and older players, and you know they gel so well. So it's really exciting to see what's going to come out on top today.
It is. Mad Lions is the only LEC team with a positive win rate in best of fives versus G2 Esports. And what I think is so cool about these two teams being in the finals is that you have a G2 who withstood everything throughout the years, made the changes that needed to be made, but stay on top. They're never not at the top. Then you have the Mad Lions who came into a system where G2 and Fnatic were winning everything. And we know how hard that is. You have success, you have fan support, young players want to play for your org, but it was Koi and it was Mad who were able to rise above.
Yeah, and just look back like 6-7 years ago when I joined the league. Fnatic, that was the team, the org you wanted to be part of because they had won everything for years and years. G2 just came into the league trying to take over the spot, basically the position Mad is in right now. And now G2 is the new top dog. I hate to say it as a former Fnatic player. I'm sorry to all Fnatic fans out there, but
they're not watching.
Please don't hate me. No, but really, G2 have turned everything around these past years, and now Mad looking to do the same thing.
So cool. And G2, they are in their 3rd LEC final in a row with a mix of new and familiar faces on the lineup. And Laura caught up with some of their coaching staff.
Thank you, Sharks and Romain. Rodrigo, thank you for joining me ahead of today's series.
Hello. Hello.
Amazing body paint. I don't know how it's going to go with the couch.
I'm scared to lean, yeah, for the couch, but
stay
fine.
like this. Don't move. Well, glad to see you guys at finals today. I wanted to talk about the whole team and how everything is organized, because the interesting thing when you look at G2 is that even though players and staff change, you still have the same vibes as you had in 2019, Romain. How is that so?
I think there's a a few tiny bit differences with the vibes from 2019. I think we have a much bigger coaching staff, and in the way we operate, we have the gaming houses, but also a facility. So the guys sleep in 4 different apartments. Actually, Rodrigo and I also sleep in the same places. So it's a lot of fun. But when we have to go to work in the morning, we have to travel for a solid 3 minutes, which is a lot of walking for gamers, and 1 elevator. But then we go to a facility where we have our own stuff. So it allows us to keep these differences between where we sleep, where we work.
All right, I see. And Rodrigo, you're the head analyst here. You work with 5 people in the office. Someone else that you want to introduce maybe later?
Yeah, so we have 5 people on the coaching staff working with us at the office. And the remote analyst that works with us is FLICKR. So big shout out to FLICKR. He's doing a very solid job when it comes to scouting opponents, so he deserves the recognition. And basically how we operate is I'm in charge of any scouting-related matters, so it goes all the way from solo queue to competitive games, with the help of FLICKR, of course. And then I'm also in charge, for example, of preparing presentations related to patch and stuff, so I give a lot of ideas to players and stuff like that. And then Dylan is the one who is the maestro, he operates everything, and he decides what is needed to be done.
All right, so it's a well-oiled machine, Romain. Everyone has their role, and how do you guys complement each other?
I want also to praise Rodrigo because I think a lot of teams are blindly following whatever happened in LCK and LPL. I think we are really data-oriented teams, and we're always down to try new pick if the pick makes sense from a data-related perspective, once again. So, and thanks to Rodrigo for helping us and keeping us honest and accountable on this kind of stuff. And we also make sure the players can have some special time with the coaching staff. Every day we do what we call one-on-one, and so between Rodrigo or me or Raf or Dylan or Isma, the player has the opportunity to talk to someone really different, but he has to do it every day. So those one-on-one are never weaponized. A player is never going to be scared if you, hey, come to talk to me. Oh, no, because we do that so often. Of course, that's just going to be to talk about strategy or mental health, motivation and stuff.
And I think that it's nice to have an individual approach, and that's also why maybe the team feels like this. Last question for you, Rodrigo.
Yep.
Coming into today, we know that G2 likes them spicy pick. Have you been cooking this week, or did you just bomb the kitchen?
Let's say the kitchen is very big. To be honest, we didn't really prepare anything special for Mad Lions because we just prepared for G2 ourselves. It's just very important for us to not outdraft ourselves, right? So that's how it works. Especially when you have 3 different teams that can actually go to finals.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if we would face SK today, for example. So we can't really go into a week practicing in mind of only one opponent. We need to be aware of the whole picture, right? So it's very important for us to take that into account. And then, of course, now we know they're playing Mad Lions, then we adapt a bit. We have new priorities that come up in the draft. And then we come up with new ideas. But the overall practice is focused on ourselves instead of the 3 opponents we could face, because then it just doesn't make much sense,
I love the approach. We'll see how it translates on the Rift. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much
I'll
for
let
having
you go to the team. Good luck today also.
Thank you.
And Sharks, back to you.
Thank you so much. I love no matter what function Romain holds, he always shows up decked out to finals with complete body paint and everything, this time sporting the Big Ben. It's awesome. Also cool to hear from the surrounding staff around G2, which makes them good. They help make G2 as good as they are. But what makes them so good? How do they play? What do they show us?
Right, okay, so let's just take it from the beginning, right? G2 is composed of 5 individual strong laners. They can all be put as some of the best in their position. But that's not what makes them so good. That's just a core foundation of it, because 5 individuals is nothing if you can't play as a team. We've seen that multiple times as well. It's the way they do it. It's the way that they're on the same page. It's the way that they're aligned. And it's the way that they're not making mistakes. You give this team an early game lead, they all know what they need to do. And that's why we see them drive home these big stomps so very often.
They work together very well, and we've seen it whenever they've been in their best iteration. That is how they've played rather. What is also similar to when they've been very successful in the past is how flexible they have been, Broxa.
Yeah, I think one thing that has really defined the G2 roster is their flexibility in draft, in how they play. You have 5 players that can all be the carriers in terms of champion pools. It's one of the few, if not one of the only teams that's having a lot of success playing different jungle champions out of the core 4 that we see. They played Lilia, they played Belveth, obviously Zac in the mid lane and other crazy Caps things. Yeah, that's just Caps, right? That's how it goes. Shout out to his Vayne a few years ago. But all in all, you never know what's coming. They're impossible to prepare for. They can draft everything. They can play for every lane. What are you going to do, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really tough. And I think that G2, to me, the way they approach the draft is the most unique out of any team here in the LEC. And it's all, the foundation of it comes down to Yike, the new player they introduced in the jungle, and how they just completely support him and how he wants to play. Because he's always on these very fast-clearing jungle champions, usually like the more carry-oriented mindset. And that means, well, how do we find engage in the rest of our comp? So Mickey X feels super happy, just lock in the melee sports like the Nautilus all the time. That's where you get the crazy Sejuani mid for Caps, because Yike hasn't played that just yet. And they are always finding creative solutions to make a well-rounded draft.
And the common denominator here, of course, is Caps. He was there in 2019 when they did so incredibly well, and flexibility was really important for them. Broxa, and he's a player that is not afraid to change in terms of enabling new players, it seems, because Yike comes in and he's like, fine, I'll play a Sejuani, I'll play a Zac to put you at ease, and I think that's a great trait to have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really cool how Caps has completely changed his playstyle this year compared to when he played with me and Jankos, because me and Jankos were known as more consistent players, so to speak, you know, kind of supporting the lane, setting them up for success. In a lot of ways, similar playstyles. But now, for the first time, Caps is the one enabling others. He's setting his jungler up for success, and that gives Yike so many opportunities. So I think in that way, it's really a, you know, really big split for him, showing that he doesn't have to be the carry. Not only does he have, you know, a champion Ocean, he can also just change playstyle when necessary. And, you know, today, like, what is he going to do? Is he going to whip out the carry pants? Is he going to let his jungler do the job? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the one thing that's been consistent through G2 through all their iterations has been just a willingness to try and fight a lot early, because they are a master of playing off of their own priority. I think so much of this comes down to Caps, because whether he's advantaged in the mid lane matchup, pushes out a wave, and looks to collapse on top or bot lane as a big wave is crashing in, they're always going to be looking to play off that. Sometimes he'll just give up a wave in order to hit that same timing. His read of how long it takes him to get places on the map, of when waves are going to be crashing, is just at the top of the LEC. And it's why their games are always super explosive, super bloody.
And it's also why the mid lane match of today is so very interesting, because both mid laners here has kind of gone through a reverse in style, right? Cap's no longer the guy that plays for himself, but not that he's always done that. He's always been so flexible, but now way more out on the map playing for his teammates, whereas Nisqy now playing so much more for himself, where afterwards you start playing for the team. But also just in general, watching groups, watching playoffs with these two mid laners behind me, there's been something completely different about them as well, a certain aura. And it's not in-game, it's out of the game. When you see them play, they're so happy to be doing what they do. Cap's always been smiley, Cap's always been a jokester. The same for Nisqy, but not in the same way that I'm seeing it now. When he's playing the Gragas, when he's emoting, when he's BMing, when you're seeing his player camps, he's just always laughing. And it's this energy behind him that just feels like they have the confidence and they have the just relaxation about what they're doing.
I feel like that's something that we've said over about the Mad Lions and G2 throughout the years. They're both kind of the two teams that we see that can be kind of a loose cannon in game, but always with a smile, a good atmosphere, and that usually creates a really good atmosphere indeed.
100%. And I also just think, like, you see it too in like the swagger, like dancing around the map, a little bit of the emote play. Even Nisqy, after winning yesterday in the interview, being like, yeah, you know, this Gragas pick, I started practicing it after a certain mid laner named Caps busted out against me in scrims. Like, today it's crazy because it's not on the shared list, but I think Gragas is actually just the highest priority mid laner for these two
players. It should like be under it, like in the maybe shading
It's insane.
Yeah, it's
What
crazy.
year is this?
What year is this indeed? However, all things considered, I think we can say that Mad Lions are the underdogs going into this match versus G2. I think there's a lot of inquantifiables because we just haven't seen G2 this week at all. We've seen 9 games out of the Mad Lions. If they are the underdogs, where's the X factor? Is there somewhere where they can move the needle along and perhaps challenge G2 and perhaps take home the title today?
Personally speaking, from what we've seen from playoffs here, it has to be Chasey for me, really. I feel like Mad Lions has really become a team that wants to play for that top side. We've seen how Nisqy and Elyoya does their thing, specifically on the Gragas and the Vi together, but Chasey on the Aurelia, Chasey on the Jace, this man has been getting a lot of resources, and he's been getting it in a lot of their final games in the best of series as well, where it's like, well, now we've played a few games. What should be the X factor he brings out? It looks to be the top side at times.
I also think it shouldn't be underestimated that, you know, Mad Lions now been through the lower bracket run. They've played as many games in 2 days as they did in the regular season, and I've seen it so many times in the past, both in NA and in Europe, that a team, you know, they falter a little bit at the start of playoffs, but then they ramp up with the amount of games, and eventually when they get to the final, they're so practiced, so confident that they can just destroy anyone coming their way.
Yeah, I mean, they showed a lot of learnings, I think, from Friday's best of 5 to the games yesterday in terms of like the draft and the approach there, which also like keeps me on this top lane point because I do think the champion picks in the matchup for Chasey is so important to if he can actually roll over the top lane. Like I favor him in general in the top lane, but like if he gets the Jace, that's a champion that he can have a huge impact on the game. The Aurelia too, if they're playing hard through that side of the map, that's something that he can try 1v9 carry with, but I don't think that's going to be an easy thing to get multiple times here today against G2.
No, Broken Blade's been watching. He's been, Chasey, I see what you're doing. I'm not gonna let you get your hands on those champions. Perhaps. Well, for tonight, we're also keeping an extra eye on the bot lane as Hans Sama looks to lift his first ever trophy in the LEC.
NA wasn't like chilling. I tried my hardest, but I had a really rough time to get used to how the game is there, and unfortunately, I just failed there. It's kind of a redemption, yeah. Because everyone forgot me. I used to do well in LEC, and I'm back at really ready to do the same thing, so.
Reckless coming over the wall, Rux now in the area, has the shielding extra for Reckless. Mickey now locking Reckless down, buying a bit more space. Hansama low on mana, but the hook manages to land. First blood, cash out for the Draven, it's disaster. Rux locked down, now Yike becomes Yuumi. Reckless running the axe. Oh, it's a disaster for Fnatic. G2 just too damn clean.
It's good to be back, especially when the way I see the game is very EU style, and I feel like playing at G2 is like, I can utilize everything that I know, and it's great, you know. This feels like a really amazing team for me, like everyone is so aggressive, so I can also be aggressive, and going to finals, really, I just want to play against a strong opponent, and we get up really stronger than them, but I don't want to be going to finals and it's like easy. I want it to be challenging and get to win. That would be the best feeling ever.
We hope it isn't easy either. We hope we get 5 games, and it is a very nice matchup indeed. But the bot lane is going to be so important, and it's such an exciting matchup, I want to say. There's also a myriad of storylines that concentrate themselves around the bot lane specifically. Carzzy back on the Mad Lions, not in Vitality anymore, and they're not anywhere to be found. Maybe he wins the championship here. Same goes for Hilly and Fnatic. Of course, Hans Sama never was able to get that championship in the LEC, so there's so much at stake specifically for the bot lanes.
100%, and it also feels like there's definitely a difference in, I don't know how to describe it really, because it's not skill necessarily, but in terms of really who's taking control of this 2v2 lane down in the bottom lane, G2's bot lane for sure is the one who's going to grid. No, so for sure, like, let's be real, right? Carzzy has not been having the most amazing time in the bot lane, and specifically not in the early game. Countless of times, even in the victories against Koi, we've seen him fall behind. And the problem is, when you do that against a laner like Hans Sama, who's so used to getting ahead, who G2 is so used to playing through as well, that's going to be a point of attack that you need to lessen somehow, something that you need to play for as well. I think Hans Sama as a bot laner today is someone you need to look out for. You need to shut him down some way.
Absolutely, and alongside them, we have 2 absolute legends, Hilly and Mickey X, veteran supports back at the top. Hylissang's 9th LEC final, Broxa.
I think it's really crazy knowing that it's going to be Mickey versus Hilly, because I remember 2019 summer, we were in Athens, Fnatic versus G2, Mickey versus Hilly, and these 2 guys had so much respect for each other back then. They were praising each other all the time. And now, you know, 4 years later, here we go again. They're still matching up against each other, and they're still playing at the very top. It's so impressive.
Class is permanent.
Yeah, and I also just think it's so interesting with this stylistic that both these supports brings to the table, because they were some of the supports even in the beginning of the split where a lot of range supports took over, where they said, you know what, we don't really care about this. We want to stick to the fact that you can play these playmaking champions. And I think that fits them as well, because they are players who want to be able to be aggressive, but also make calls and be a difference maker for their team. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw both bot lanes try and go all out. We'd seen the Rel for Hylissang. We've also seen the Nautilus for Mickey as well.
And speaking of being playmakers, speaking of bringing X Factor, like, who else than Hylissang can really do it? Like, this is the type of guy who doesn't care if he's playing regular season, LEC final, world final. He just goes forward, and he's just going to look for those angles, and he's someone I'm going to keep my eyes on today for sure.
Always shows up when he is needed the most. What a wonderful final between Mad Lions and G2. One of them goes to MSI. One of them can be our first ever winter champion. We are just minutes away from the opening ceremony after 6 weeks of epic League of Legends. 2 teams remain, G2 and the Mad Lions, who will become the first ever LEC Winter Split champions. Who will be victorious? Let's find out.
Everyone on our team have our eyes set on international competition. We also want to beat even better teams than Koi. I think that is like kind of what motivates us to do better, even when we're like doing really well in scrims, doing really well on stage. We just have to keep doing it, right?
It continues G2's winning ways as they lock a spot in the finals on Sunday.
Now we're in the finals and hopefully we win as well tomorrow. Even though it's not going to be that easy, I think.
LEC now, back to party, back to fight. The ammo hits, and the APR will do a ton of damage. It's a triple. He's looking for the quadra. He kills off Yankos for the pentakill.
We need to prove to everyone that we are a way better team than everyone expected. And not only that, for me, this year is really personal since I want to prove how good of a player I am if I give my fullest to the team.
The thing we wanted to do with G2 was that we were able to play all meta picks, but also be able to play our own picks on the side, maybe some counters.
They said you wanted me, they baited us all.
They are playing a style that no one is playing, so people are not used to playing into these champs, into these kind of comps. But at the same time, there is a reason why these comps are not so strong. So if you know how to play well against them, they are going to end up really bad.
I think people are just too lazy to try out other things, so we're just going to punish them for it.
Caps lands the final shot and then pops a stopwatch of his own again to try to get into the back line. But Broken Blade is running them down. A triple to Han Summer.
You could say it's a redemption story since I was from winning LEC going to like 7th place team.
There's no hope for Kazi to defend his title.
I don't want to be like going to finals and it's like easy. I want it to be challenging.
Broken Blade's already in the back line. The Draven does too much damage.
I think it's gonna be very difficult because I think G2 are by far the strongest looking team. So it's gonna be very hard and I'm excited.
Yeah, I've never won the LEC before because I remember one final that I got reverse swept. It was so free win. My Lions took it.
It is the Mad Lions.
I really have to win it this time.
I've already played against Hansama when he was playing really well in Rogue and everyone was scared of them and he wasn't able to carry back then, so he won't be able to carry this time.
Hello, Berlin, and everybody watching around the world. Welcome to the final series of the finals weekend here from the LEC Winter Split. Today, the artists of G2 Esports take on the pride of Mad Lions, with the winner earning themselves a spot at the season finals and a shot at Montpellier, with the first team in the world to guarantee a showing in London at MSI, and on being the first ever winter champions. But Ollie, something's missing. What are the teams playing for? Let's bring it out. The jewel of the LEC. Our Winter Split Shields! With 9 titles under their belts, looking for 10, it is my pleasure to introduce Broken Blade! Yike! Caps! Han Summer! Mickey! Put your hands together for G2 Esports! Their opponents have never lost a final with 2 titles under their belts. Meet Chasey! Niski! Kazi! Hillisang! Supported by Mac, it's the Mad Lions! Put your hands together for your winter finalists, G2 versus Mad Lions! Mad Lions are
boy. And Mad Lions will find their opportunity and revenge against G2.
The job is not done. 5 of their players are really solid, the 5 of them. Everyone knows how to game the game when everything is going as scripted. But at the same time, team draft is a weakness from them. If you analyze their composition, you see the flaws they have, it can be really easy to win against them.
Hold that thought.
It's a lot of damage, and as Irrelevant is just solo kills.
Megadar coming out from Shagenda though.